The Vorthak hunting cruiser. Death's whisper drifted silently through the outer rim of the Terran system, its bioorganic hull pulsing with predatory anticipation. Captain Zexhai flexed his razor-sharp talons against the command console, his 4 eyes scanning the sensor readings with practiced hunger. For 3 centuries he had stalked the galaxy's most dangerous prey, collecting trophies from species that thought themselves apex predators. Today's hunt would be different. Today he would claim his first human. The readings showed a small civilian transport limping through the asteroid belt, its engines failing and life support systems fluctuating. Perfect. Zexhai's mandibles clicked, in what passed for Vorthak laughter, a sound like breaking glass mixed with dying screams. His crew of 7 other hunters stirred restlessly behind him, their own excitement palpable in the ship's humid atmosphere. "Initiate stalking protocol," Zexhai commanded, his voice a guttural rasp. "I want them to know they're being hunted, before we strike." The Death's whisper engaged its stealth systems and began its approach. Through the viewports, Zexhai could see the damaged human vessel, little more than a cargo hauler with jury-rigged passenger quarters. His thermal sensors detected only 2 life signs aboard, 1 adult, 1 smaller. A parent and child, perhaps. Even better. The Vorthak had studied human psychology extensively. They knew about the species' irrational attachment to their offspring, how they would sacrifice themselves without hesitation to protect their young. It would make the hunt more entertaining. "Broadcasting terror frequencies now," reported his sensor operator, a scarred veteran named Clickstar. The subsonic waves would gradually induce panic and despair in most species. "The adults' biometrics are spiking, heart rate elevated, stress hormones flooding their system." Zexhai's mandibles clicked again. The hunt was proceeding perfectly, but something was wrong with the smaller life sign. The child's readings remained steady, too steady. No elevated heart rate, no spike in stress hormones, no indication of the primal fear that should be consuming a young mind faced with certain death. "Sensor malfunction?" Zexhai growled. "Negative, Captain. All systems optimal. The small human appears to be unaffected." Interesting. Perhaps human children were too primitive to understand danger. This would make the trophy even more satisfying. The Death's whisper closed to optimal striking distance. Zexhai activated the tractor beam, snaring the human vessel like a spider catching a fly. He could see the adult frantically working at their controls, trying desperately to escape the inevitable. But the child, visible now through the transport's viewport, simply stood there, small hands pressed against the transparent aluminum, staring directly at the hunting ship. Those eyes. Even across the void of space, Zexhai could feel the weight of that gaze. It was unsettling. "Beginning boarding procedures," he announced, shaking off the momentary discomfort. "Standard protocol. Kill the adult quickly, but keep the child conscious for as long as possible. I want to study human fear responses in their natural development stage." The docking tube extended with mechanical precision, sealing against the transport's airlock. Zexhai led his hunting pack through the breach, their biosuits adapting to the human ship's atmosphere. The cramped corridors reeked of fear sweat and desperation. They found the adult in the cockpit, a woman middle-aged clutching a plasma cutter with shaking hands. Her terror was intoxicating, filling the air with the sweet scent of prey panic that all Vorthak lived for. "Please," she whispered, backing against the far wall. "Take me, but leave my daughter alone. She's just 7 years old. She doesn't understand." Zexhai's plasma cannon vaporized her head before she could finish the sentence. The hunt was about efficiency, not conversation. "Where is the child?" he demanded of his pack. They found her in the cargo bay, sitting cross-legged on a supply crate, still wearing that same unnervingly calm expression. She had watched them murder her mother without so much as flinching. Fascinating. "Hello," the child said simply. Her voice carried no fear, no anger, no grief, just a strange, gentle curiosity. "My name is Emma. What's yours?" Zexhai's 4 eyes focused on this impossible creature. In 3 centuries of hunting, he had never encountered prey that greeted him with such serenity. "I am Captain Zexhai of the Vorthok hunting fleet," he replied, his translator rendering his words into the child's primitive language. "You are my prize." Emma tilted her head slightly. "Are you going to hurt me?" "Yes." "Okay." She paused, considering this. "Does hurting me make you happy?" The question struck Zexhai like a physical blow. He had expected screaming, begging, the delicious terror that made the hunt worthwhile. Instead, this small human was asking about his emotional state with the casual interest of a xenobiologist studying an interesting specimen. Yes, it is the way of my people." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "My mom used to hurt people too before I was born. She was a soldier, but she told me that every time she hurt someone, a little piece of her got smaller. She said that's why she stopped fighting and became a freight hauler instead, so we could see the galaxy without making anyone smaller." "Your mother was weak," Zexhai snarled, though the words felt hollow in his throat. "No," Emma said with quiet certainty. "She was afraid of becoming smaller. That's not weak. That's smart." She slipped down from the crate and walked toward him, actually walked toward the 8-foot-tall apex predator whose claws could rend steel. Her small hand reached out and gently touched his biosuit just above where his primary heart beat. "I can feel how small you are inside," she whispered. "It must hurt so much to be that small in such a big body. Is that why you need to make others hurt? To feel bigger?" The words hit Zexhai's consciousness like antimatter torpedoes. In that moment, he saw himself through the child's eyes, not as a magnificent predator, but as something pitiful and hollow, desperately trying to fill an endless void with the suffering of others. His mandibles, which had been poised to tear out her throat, went slack. Behind him, his hunting pack shifted uneasily. They could sense their captain's distress, though they couldn't understand its source. "You don't have to stay small," Emma continued, her voice carrying impossible wisdom. "My mom taught me that people can choose to grow instead of shrink, even when it's scary, even when it hurts." Zexhai stared down at this tiny human child who had somehow weaponized compassion itself, who had turned his own predatory nature against him without raising a hand in violence. For the first time in 3 centuries, he felt something other than the hunger for the hunt. He felt ashamed. "Captain?" Clickstar's voice was uncertain. "Your orders?" Zexhai looked at his crew, then back at Emma, then at the vacant space where her mother had stood just moments before. A choice stretched before him: continue as he always had, or find the courage to grow instead of shrink. The great predator knelt before the small child, his weapons powering down. "Take us home," he whispered to his crew. "All of us." Emma smiled, the first truly emotional expression she had shown, and for a brief moment, Zexhai felt what it might be like to be larger on the inside. He never laughed the sound of breaking glass and dying screams again. Some said this made him weak. Those who knew him after knew better. The former predator had simply learned that true strength lay, not in making others smaller, but in choosing to grow, especially when it was the most frightening thing in the universe. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between stars, he would remember a small human child who had shown him that prey and predator were just words, and that wisdom could come from the most unexpected sources. The hunt, he realized, had been over before it began. Emma had been the predator all along,